September 3rd, 2015. That is the last time the Ravens lost a preseason game. That is until they faced the Washington Commanders in Game 2 of this current preseason. Welcome to the Ravens Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel Njoku, and the streak is over. Call The Undertaker, call Brock Lesnar, call Paul Heyman. It's done. The Ravens finally lose the game. He tried to make it 25 straight. Could not get it done. Lose to the Commanders, unfortunately. But it's just a preseason. Don't tell that to John Harbaugh. We'll get into that. But the games go on. We have a Game 3 game coming up against the Tampa Bay Bucks, the last preseason game until the show officially starts. We'll have Ken Zalis from Fantasy Pros to join us to talk all about Ravens football, as well as the fantasy football drafts for you fantasy draft fans coming up here shortly. But first, we have to talk about the streak, Very exciting times. ESPN, Monday Night Football. It felt like a real game. It felt very, very real. I was at the edge of my seat. I thought for sure there will be a last-second play made by the defense, maybe a missed kick going to the left that will cause the Ravens to extend that streak over to 25. But no, sir, the Commanders clutch it, get the job done. And if you're a Washington Commanders fan, congratulations. It looks like you just won the Super Bowl. I mean, those guys, to the coaches, the fans, the players, they were excited. Super excited. But just another day in the office of the Ravens as they make a push for the actual Super Bowl. We'll see what type of action the Ravens are able to accomplish in Game 3 if they can bounce back. But on to the streak, just to talk a little bit more about it. It seems as though John Harbaugh was pretty upset about the loss. I won't say that he was upset. He was disappointed. He even admitted to that fact. He was a little disappointed with the fact that the Ravens were unable to extend that streak. But he did take a couple of shots to the media. And I want to address that a little bit because he seemed to say that the media, they didn't believe that this was a very important game, that we thought it was, not important. It wasn't a high priority for the Ravens to get the job done, which is sort of true. I don't believe that the preseason means anything as far as wins and losses are concerned, but certainly as far as the players are concerned, especially those in the bubble, those who are pushing for that roster spot, it means a great deal. And we take pride in coming on the show and talking to analysts and fans alike about what these players have done and need to do to get that roster spot. So I don't believe the media really thinks as though these games are meaningless. But as far as wins and losses are concerned, definitely something to look past. John Harbaugh also mentioned that he's very proud of his players for performing, and I agree. The Ravens definitely did step up. A lot of good players showed out, and we'll get to that for sure. Some players were a little disappointing, and we'll talk about that as well, but overly positive results from individual performances from key players who I believe will make an impact in the 2023 season. On to other news as far as the Ravens are concerned. Rock Ya-Sin, the cornerback who we have been talking about for quite some time, finally made his way back to the practice field. He looks to help solidify that cornerback spot, which has been very questionable as the days have progressed, I should say, in training camp. We also got Jalen Armour-Davis back on the field. Arthur Maulet, he's also back on the field. So the cornerback spot is getting a little cohesive. So hold your horses if you think that this is a weakness of the Ravens defense, I should say. It looks like these players are going to come in and try and make an impact and shore up the cornerback spot as Marlon Humphrey looks to get back on his feet following foot surgery. But to piggyback off of what we spoke about as far as the preseason action, the streak, the Ravens did lose to the Commanders. However, there were some very, very, very nice performances from players and some not so great performances. We'll call it studs and duds. Let's start off again with the stud. Second straight game in a row, Zay Flowers. Ooh-wee. You guys see what I'm talking about now? Zay Flowers has looked exceptional in camp, and a lot of players, a lot of reporters and analysts thought that, he's more of a training camp guy. Winning his one-on-ones in practice is one thing, but actually getting into a game environment and actually trying to perform 11 on 11 and working a game plan and trying to get into the end zone is another thing. But he proved those doubters wrong because he made the end zone practically immediately, during the first few seconds of, I don't say first few seconds, first few moments of the game, he definitely made his impact felt, reached the end zone thanks to Josh Johnson, and he's a player that will definitely look forward to seeing as the season progresses. Another stud of mine, someone who threw him that touchdown, Josh Johnson. We talked about this a little bit last week about how there is a backup quarterback competition between Josh Johnson and Tyler Huntley. Josh Johnson made his presence felt. He went 10 for 12, had 2 touchdowns. He had another interception that we'll get into a little bit later that was, I believe, a little fluky. But all in all, great performance. Tyler Huntley was down with an injury. He didn't play in Game 2 against the Commanders. So his presence wasn't felt as much. So it was up to Josh Johnson to kind of step up and take the reins, to kind of take a little opportunity to show out. And he did just that. He made Todd Monken definitely think about what they're going to have to do as far as making a decision about a roster spot for Josh Johnson and Tyler Huntley. We talked about this a little bit last week again. Ken McCusick joined us. He said that, money-wise, it might not be bad to put Josh Johnson in and to maybe give Tyler Huntley the exit. But all in all, we'll see. There's still one more game to be played. If Josh Johnson performs as he did last week, this week against the Bucs, very tough decision ahead for the Baltimore Ravens for sure. And my third stud, ooh-wee. That's my favorite phrase to say, ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. He looked really, really good. We got to give it up to my boy Keaton Mitchell. Once again, he didn't really play, didn't have a lot of huge plays, the likes of Zay Flowers, but his burst was definitely felt. He did, however, get injured. John Harbaugh said that he was fine, but something to look out for. I think that might be a stash situation for the Baltimore Ravens to look at, and they might use this opportunity to maybe cover him up from the rest of the league, have him on IR for a little bit, keep him for one more season, have him gain a little bit of weight, get him into the training room as far as learning the pass protection schemes, which is a knock that was on his favor when he was in East Carolina, his ability to pass protect well for the quarterback. So I still love what I see from Keaton Mitchell. I feel like he is definitely going to be a piece that the Ravens can use later on, but I love what I see from Keaton Mitchell once again. Now on to our duds. I hate calling it duds because really everyone performed really well. There are these 1 or 2 players. I think we're nitpicking a little bit with this, even though it was a loss. I think that we're very much nitpicking with these duds because I think that they definitely showed a little bit on the field today. Just not enough to my taste, if you wanna speak to that. So my first dud, James Proche, definitely conversation starter because he did cause that interception for Josh Johnson when he kind of had the ball in his hands but didn't really reel it in, and it caused the defender to kind of pick it off and take it quite a distance the other way. But I think the throw was underthrown. It wasn't made well for him to make that play, but he is a professional football player, so you want to make sure that you get your hands on it, you reel it in, but even if you did catch it, it wasn't going to be a touchdown because unless he was a contortionist who can move his body a certain way and kind of make sure that he landed both feet in bounds, it wasn't going to be a completion. But because he juggled it, it gave the Commanders a chance to reel it in for the interception and take it back. So not much going for him. I think he had 1 reception for about 7 yards in that game. So he's fighting for that roster spot with Tylan Wallace, who performed very well in his absence, in his stead, I should say. So James Proche definitely has a lot of work cut out for him as far as perhaps making the roster, especially considering that he was in fielding duty. And he did the right thing, I believe, by not catching the ball as the punt went over his head, but it rolled over to the 3-yard line, and the Commanders used that to give themselves excellent field position. So it's just one of those fluky games for James Proche. I think he'll bounce back, but every play counts in the National Football League, especially when you're in the roster bubble and you're fighting for that spot. So James Proche gets my dud with an asterisk. My second dud, David Ojabo. Listen, I believe last season, I think a listener of the podcast kind of spoke to me about this a little bit, where he said that, David Ojabo looked really good last season. And this season, not so much. Maybe he's trying to reel it in a little bit, maybe not try too hard, but that's not the Ravens' way, I don't believe. So I'm thinking David Ojabo needs to get some reps in. I tweeted this out during the game against the Commanders. I think that he needs as many reps as he can get. Find out what pass rush moves work for you and what moves don't. Figure out when to be aggressive and when not to be. You got to set that edge, or these runs are going to get you. And he wasn't really getting to the passer as much. I don't know. It just seems like David Ojabo might be struggling a little early on. And with the addition of Jadeveon Clowney, it might be a situation where he doesn't see the field as much as we thought entering into this thing. My third and final dud, it has to go to the, I want to say, let's think about this. I was going to say someone, but now that I think about it, I don't believe that he deserves this dud of ours. Okay. Well, Let's go with the dud of mine that I believe might deserve it a little bit, and that is the cornerback spot outside of the guys that were brought in. Washington looked good. Ardarius Washington looked good, but besides from that, still too many Commanders in open space. Howell had a great time just dicing up the cornerbacks in the secondary, and really it doesn't look that anybody other than Washington made their presence felt for that spot. In fact, Washington looks so good, he might be vying for that nickel spot. I mean, we got Jalen Armour-Davis, we got Arthur Marlette coming in and possibly fighting for that third spot, but Washington played a large majority of the game, and he looked good. He looked good in his limited action, so don't be surprised if you see this guy come in and make an impact in the season. I believe he's a shoo-in for the spot, obviously. But besides him, nobody else really stepped up. None of these little guys came in and made an impact, in my opinion. I mean, there might have been one or two guys who made a play or two, but I'm looking for flash, high-impact, game-changing plays. It's the preseason, yes and no, but this is the National Football League, and this is an area of concern for the Ravens. Obviously, these guys have come back. Rocket Sin, Arthur Davis, as I mentioned, and JAD, but they need some more guys to come in and step up because you got guys like the Kansas City Chiefs, you got the Cincinnati Bengals twice, you got the Bills in the division, the Jets. The AFC is loaded. You need corners to really step up. But we'll see. It's game 2. Game 3 against the Bucs will be the final test for these guys, and the Ravens have a big decision to make as far as these roster spots, and hopefully one of these guys can step up and grab that spot. All right, when we get back, we'll have Ken Zalis from Fantasy Pros talk a little fantasy football with us, as well as who he believes in the Ravens roster gives you a chance to win a fantasy football championship. This is the Ravens Talk Podcast. Welcome back to the Ravens Talk Podcast, and we have with us Ken Zalis with Fantasy Pros. He's here to talk to us all about the fantasy football world and those Baltimore Ravens. How you doing today, Ken?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, man.
Great. So before we get started, got to ask you, how you feel about the streak ending? 24 straight wins, and that's it.
It's so stupid. I mean, it's so stupid. There's a part of me, I joked with some people. I said, I can't believe they allowed the streak to end. I mean, we've won 2 playoff games in 10 years, and now we don't even have the preseason streak. But you got the Commanders playing starters against second and third stringers, and it's all nothing. I mean, you just want, as a fan, you just want everybody to come out healthy from preseason games. As a coach, you just want to be able to look at players, and they're probably, from the Ravens standpoint, think it's great that other teams are using their starters against the guys that are trying to make the team, so they can get a true accounting of what's going on. But the streak was always stupid. Harbaugh and the way he talked about the streak, and all of a sudden he wants to come out and say, "Oh, it never really mattered." It's
exactly.
Like, well, go tell yourself all your old quotes over the years about how much it mattered. I'm glad it's over in the sense that we can now stop talking about it.
Absolutely. And, I guess the one bad thing, if you're a Ravens fan, is that they lost to the Commanders. So those guys 45 minutes away are going to start yapping about it like they won the Super Bowl. But other than that, pretty meaningless, right?
I mean, if Ravens fans are getting upset because they're yapping, and I saw the yapping online about, that they won a preseason game, I just let them yap. Don't even get in, or don't even enter into that space. It's just it's a pointless argument of somebody. Like, the fans really, I've talked to enough fans. The fans really never cared about the streak.
Not at all.
Not at all. I mean, you never heard anybody. I mean, we all made it out to be a big joke, and they're taking it seriously. It's like, okay, well, that's because you're not a perennial playoff team that people are, in some circles, are saying could challenge for the Super Bowl this year. You're trying to rebuild and starting a quarterback who I like, but is unproven in the league, in Sam Howell, and talking about trading away, Chase and things like that. Enjoy it. Print up shirts, give everybody rings, have fun.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be some bit of reality check for that team come the season.
Yeah.
But all right, well, the Ravens, they didn't suit up about 35 plus guys in this preseason game, and couple that with the first game, it's kind of hard to get a look at who we believe will be perennial starters in the upcoming season. But with the first 2 games out of the books, is there a player or two you saw during those games that really impressed you, or someone who really surprised you coming in who you didn't really expect to do so?
I don't know if anybody impressed me. I'm a Keaton Mitchell guy. I loved even when they signed him. I mean, I'm a college football guy as well, and I do draft stuff, and it boggles my mind every year how running backs are just not drafted that are really productive in college. The NFL running backs that aren't getting paid are complaining about the fact that they're not getting paid, and it's like, haven't you been paying attention for years? Like, they don't even draft you all anymore.
Right.
I mean, his career in college was just great, and he's done great things. In his limited, he got 1 carry, went for 34 yards the other night. And you see, like, it's just eye-opening, that quick burst. That's a burst that we don't see and haven't seen for a while. And I just think that I know they like him from talking to some people. I don't know who you're going to get rid of,
Exactly.
And how many running backs you're going to keep. I mean, if you're going to, let's for argument's sake say they keep 4. I mean, Justice Hill is having his best preseason of his career, and did some solid things last year. His biggest issue is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. You got Dobbins and Gus coming off of injuries. You got the whole Dobbins situation. The Gordon thing to me is easy. He's got to go. He has no juice whatsoever. He can't get to the outside anymore. He's a fumbler in the NFL historically. I know he hasn't fumbled for the Ravens, but I don't know if you can keep 5, and they're not getting Keaton Mitchell onto their practice squad. There's no way. So he's impressed me. I wasn't, and I'm first to admit, I was not a big Zay guy in the draft.
Really?
Well, here's the thing, and I explain this very, very succinctly. I'm not a small wide receiver guy in the NFL. I think Zay has all kinds of ability, and his tape is fantastic. My problem was that anytime I do a comp for somebody, I try to stay away from the 2 or 3 guys that were Hall of Fame-ish or historic at that position.
Right.
And where I can go and I said this with way back with Hollywood Brown. When they took Hollywood Brown, I was all up in arms about it because they passed on A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown is my type of receiver. I want the 6'1", 6'2", 210, 215 that can run great routes and do all the thing and maybe just aren't the really, really quick guys. But the comparison to Zay Jones kept on being Tyreek Hill,
Antonio Brown.
Well, okay. Steve Smith, okay. And then somebody threw up T.Y. Hilton, and I'm like, well, for like 4 or 5 years, there wasn't a better receiver in the NFL than T.Y. Hilton. Give me somebody else. Give me somebody who's just a good receiver at his height in the NFL that had a long, productive career. And I struggled to do that. Now, if they're going to use him in space and they're going to use him and he happens to turn into Steve Smith or Tyreek Hill or even 90% of those guys, fantastic. And I was wrong. Not necessarily, again, this isn't about Zay. This is about what I like in a wide receiver.
Right.
When they took Bateman, I loved it. That's my guy. That's my guy. Now, he's been nothing but hurt, which stinks because we've seen how good he can be in the little flashes that we've seen with him. And I would love to see him in this offense. But I think everything that I've seen from Zay is like, well, maybe they got that one really right in drafting a wide receiver. And he's affected games. I had some fun with people that were getting all excited after the first preseason game, and I was like, "Let me check my notes. 1 yard, okay, yay! Let's put him in the Hall of Fame." But he did. He drew a penalty, and he had people jump, and people were worried about him. And then you saw real quick with the touchdown, the catch and run, and you saw that burst. That's the thing that the Ravens have been missing, is that those type of players that have that burst. New offense. We haven't seen any of the starters really work together at all. So, Huntley's been hurt. I'm a big Josh Johnson guy. I think that's the type of backup quarterback you need in the NFL to win when you're even though Huntley's done some nice things, but if Lamar goes down for a long period of time, it doesn't work over a long period of time. They work in little short stints. Even Anthony Brown, who I don't think is an NFL quarterback, looked pretty good in this game. So those are the things that have excited me. The defense is a mess. We know that. I mean, they had the cornerback situation is a mess. I guess I'm going to use the word ignore, but it's probably not the right word. They ignored it. They ignored it in the draft where we all thought it was a problem, and they didn't go there, and they went with the linebacker in the third round. I understand they didn't have as many picks as they normally did, but I kept on. I was like, you just need guys. You just need fourth round guys, fifth round, just somebody, and they refused to draft them, and there's not a lot of depth there, and I know they got a couple of guys back today into practice, and that's a good thing. Roxon is Roxon. I mean, he is what he is.
Yeah.
It's fine signing. The Marlin thing is a real problem. I didn't see a lot of zone. I think it's tough for me to imagine that they're not going to come out in some sort of zone.
They have to.
They have, and all the safeties that they have. They have good safeties. I mean, they have 3 really good safeties.
Yeah.
I mean, that can play and are ball hawks, and you can bring Hamilton all over the field, and people forget about Marcus Williams, and how
do you forget him?
How good he was, and oh my God. Can't wait for him to be healthy and hopefully play a full season. But those are the guys on offensive. I mean, the defensive side, I really haven't seen anything. I mean, they gave up 20, what did they give up? 28 points, 31, I don't know, 29 points, whatever they gave up. Hal looked good against the second string defense. Pass rush scares me.
Yeah.
Clowney's nice signing. But he's a guy that has 39 sacks in 9 years in the league. It's not like you're, Justin Houston was better than him last year. I just can't wait to see it all work. I mean, there's lots of excitement. I'm excited about the Ravens. I'm excited about a real offense, for Lamar without the trickery and all the silliness that Greg Roman brings with him. And, Greg Roman is what he is, and he's successful everywhere he goes for a year and a half.
And then he drops
off. Everybody
off.
figures him out, and it's over. It's like there's no plan B. And the only reason it worked here is because you had Lamar. And so I'm excited to see it all work. I think Lamar's going to do great things in this offense. I think it's much more similar to what he ran in college, where when things break down, he's going to run. Yeah. And there's not going to be as many called runs. They'll do it on occasion. But I'm excited to see, and they have the best, on paper, they have the best offensive weapons they've ever had since Vinny was here and Michael Jackson. Yeah. So, this just shows you how old I am. Probably people listening to this probably don't even remember that. That was in year one and
Ravens
year 2.
Fans, they do know.
So, but it's exciting. I just, we're not going to know until we know against Houston, because you're not going to see it. I mean, if you didn't play them by now, you're not playing any of these guys, on Saturday.
They better not. So, and I was saying they shouldn't play Zay Flowers either. I mean, even though he's a rookie.
I don't know. I've seen. Yeah. I agree with you. I totally. I've seen what I need to see.
Yeah.
Okay, go. Do not. I was upset when he was in practice and catching kicks. I'm like, no,
what are you doing?
No. What are you doing? No, I don't want him ever, never. I don't want him ever back there. I don't care that he's dynamic with the ball in his hands. I don't ever want him catching a punt or a kickoff for his entire career.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. Okay, well, let's move back a little bit because you did mention something that I believe Bear's talking about, and that's Josh Johnson being your guy, because there is a quarterback competition going on, and some people believe, Tyler Huntley did play in a playoff game, albeit in a losing effort. He has the experience in this team, but from what we saw from Josh Johnson, I believe he went 10 for 12 and 2 touchdowns. He looks very good in this Monken offense. Do you see a way in which he takes over that backup QB spot and maybe Tyler Huntley's on the back burner?
And don't get this the wrong way, because I appreciate Huntley and everything he's done, but Huntley was the right backup for the Roman system because
Agreed.
he could do and mimic some of the things that the offense was built around with Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is he's not the greatest thrower of the football, and he's not accurate enough. Now, people would say, well, Lamar's not accurate enough. I was like, okay, but Lamar's one of one in the world.
Exactly.
And he can get away with things. And by the way, he's a better passer than everybody thinks he is.
100%.
It's just people just don't want to like him. He's done nothing wrong in this league for people not to like him.
Mm-hmm.
But be that as it may, I think Josh Johnson just can throw the football in this particular Moncton offense and do the things they need to do. Look, I've been a Josh Johnson fan since he beat out Ryan Mallett, and they kept Mallett way back when. Because that's when I was actually on the beat, and
mm-hmm.
I was at training camp, and I watched it. And I'm like, they're really going to keep Mallett over this guy? This guy's doing nothing but complete passes all over the field. And he's I just think that you need a professional veteran quarterback when you have Super Bowl aspirations. I've always thought that.
Right.
And I think Huntley should be on this team because you have a situation where you can now activate, quote unquote, activate 3 quarterbacks each week because you can always have that emergency guy. So he's going to get a lot of reps, and he's going to be active on game days and things like that. And in a pinch and in an emergency, he can come into play. And that's a really valuable person to have there. You need 3 now.
Yeah.
So if you're going to keep 3, Johnson's not a third guy. Johnson's a backup guy. And to me, it's Huntley. And I know the whole injury thing it just kind of messes everything up with what they're going to do. But, if I shine the light under on Moncton, I think he's going to think that Johnson fits his offense better than Huntley does right now.
That's what I've been hearing.
We'll see how it works out. I know Harbs is a huge Huntley fan, and look, I like the kid. I just think he needs more seasoning. I think he's been thrown in his NFL career into a lot of situations that I wish he had some more seasoning and some more reps to do, because and again, I haven't seen him enough in the real offense. All I've seen him with is the Roman offense. So we'll see how it works out. But I'm a fan of Josh Johnson being the backup here.
That's tough, being a Pro Bowl quarterback, and now you might be a third stringer for the team.
Come on.
All right. Well, I've talked about this before because, being a fantasy football guy and being so close with the Ravens, I have trouble drafting Ravens guys. Of course, we have Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews as sure bets, and J.K. Dobbins are thrown in there, but really no one else. But this year we have weapons now. We have OBJ, you have Rashad Bateman hopefully coming back from an injury better than ever, and Zay Flowers emerging. Is this the season where you might be thinking about drafting more than those 3 Ravens players that we typically see?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna draft. I mean, you had 3 because Bateman was draftable last year, and of course, I mean, Lamar's a top 4 quarterback in fantasy, no matter top 5 at worst if you want to play with a couple of things. Andrews is the number 2 tight end in football, so they're automatics. They're being drafted. I actually. Dobbins is tough. I mean, he's draftable, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if he wants to play football or not. And, whether this, he held out, he came back, he's gone. You here or you're not. I mean, You're in or you're out. I mean, I'm sorry you're upset about your contract, but Nobody's getting you all had a meeting. You all had a meeting and you complained to each other. And then the guy that called the meeting went out and said, we're not really getting, so I'm going to get a couple extra million. I'm going to be done with it. And Saquon signed his tender. And, it's like, it's just not happening. And he has to prove that he can be healthy for a full year. I mean, it just does, and I love that. I love the pick. People were like, "Why are we taking another running back?" I said, "Because it's J.K. Dobbins. He's the best running back coming out that year. I truly believe that." And to get him where they got him, and it's like, you're a team that runs the ball more than anyone else. Like, take that kid. It's like, he's going to be great. And every time he's been on the field, he's been really, really good. He just hasn't been on the field enough. So I hope he's healthy. I mean, he's going he should be an RB1 if he was at camp and everything like that.
Right.
He's an RB2, RB3 type guy. You got to handcuff him with, I guess, Gus. We haven't seen Gus.
I know.
I don't know. I haven't seen him not practice, but we haven't seen Gus. So Gus is draftable. If you want to take in your last round, Hill, I guess, depending on how that all works out. I'm not against it, but you got at least two running backs you got to draft at some point. Gus is a late round dart throw after the 10th round, and then your top three receivers are all draftable. It just comes to me where you're comfortable. If I'm drafting one, I'm drafting Zay first. I think he's got the biggest upside.
Good to know.
I like him somewhere in the top 48 of wide receivers. He's my highest ranked Raven.
Okay.
As far as the wide receiver group, I think because of the upside, I probably lean Bateman second, just because I've seen what he can do when he's healthy. But him and Beckham are kind of right in that 55 to 65 ranking for wide receivers. I have a hard time with the three of them, with Lamar running a little bit, with your running backs that you have, with Andrews. I have a tough time seeing any of the receivers like having these 1,400-yard, 10 touchdown seasons. I mean, I think they can all be 800 and 6 to 8 touchdown type guys somewhere.
Right.
But there's, this is the problem when you have multiple good players, is that there's only one football, and, we can say whatever we want, but Andrews is top receiver still on this. That's where we're, until Lamar shows me on the field that that's not his first and second look every time. It's his first and second look. Where's Andrews? Third down. Where's Andrews?
So you don't see it diminishing.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that changes a little bit, but I mean, you got 6 offensive guys, maybe 7 if we want to, take a dart throw somewhere, that are draftable for the Ravens. I don't know the last time we said that.
I don't think we've ever said that.
I don't think we ever have. I mean, it was always the joke. It's like, I'll take Tucker and I'll take the defense, but I'm not touching anybody else.
100%.
So yeah, it's exciting from the fantasy standpoint. But I'm just not going overboard. In fact, there's going to be something coming out in Fantasy Pros that I just wrote today.
Okay.
And they asked us to name our sleeper for a quarterback sleeper, running back, wide receiver, tight end that are, in the bottom half of the draft. And I, of all the receivers in the entire league, I put Zay down. I think he has a huge upside. It was between him and the rookie Rice for Kansas City,
right,
because somebody's got to catch the football for Kansas City. And he's looked great in the preseason. I mean, he had like 9 catches before you blinked an eye the other night. But Zay has that ability that, we can get those quick, short passes, safe passes, and he can run a little bit and see what he can do. So, I'm excited to see that. Houston's probably a good starting game for everybody.
I was just about to say that.
I like what Houston's trying to do, but they're 2 years away, and I like some of their players, and I'm pulling for Mechie to be healthy and resume his career, because was a fantastic wide receiver in college, and the cancer kind of derailed that, but he's healthy and back, and I love Pierce there. So but they're starting a rookie quarterback. And, I think, in the first NFL game, they should handle that. As much as we all like the rookie quarterback and think he
Right.
can be good, there's still going to be some issues there. So it's a good jumping into the season point, to see what they have. And, fantasy wise, it's going to be exciting to see, if Lamar is the top 5 fantasy quarterback and Zay is the sleeper that I think he is, and Dobbins could be an RB2, and Andrews does what he does, means they're going to be good.
Yep. The offense is going to be rifling.
Means they're going to put up points, and with the defense, with all the question marks, they may have to.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about the sleepers that you mentioned, but let's take the Ravens out of it and just focus on one or two fantasy football players you've noticed that have been drafted that you don't believe will necessarily deserve that spot. Any people that have been drafted very high that you think, pump the brakes a little bit, they should be a little bit lower than they have been so far.
Everybody got pumped the brakes on 2 quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson.
Oh yeah.
I get it. I get it. Athletic freak.
Mm-hmm.
Very inconsistent in college. I mean, it is what it is.
Yes.
I hope, and it's funny when we talk about rookies and draft picks and things like that. I hope they're all successful. I really do, and I hope he's really successful. But he's going in the top 10. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
He's going in the top 10 in drafts.
Top 10 QBs? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know what that team's going to be. Yet I don't know what the running back situation is.
Taylor might not even be there.
So he's going way too high. Deshaun Watson's got to show me before I draft him where he's being drafted. I get that there's talent there, but that's still a run-first team with Chubb.
That's true.
He's going in the top 10. I don't – give me Jared Goff. I'm serious. Give me Jared Goff. Give me 45 – give me 4,500 yards, 35 touchdowns. I'll sleep like a baby, and I can get him in the 12th round. I don't get that. Running back, I mean, running back's a minefield because we don't know what to do with some of these guys. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be really, really good. I don't know if he's going to be top 15 good. That's going to be a good offense. James Conner is tremendously underrated. He's being drafted way, way too low. James Cook, my voice is all of a sudden gone. You see, you got me on it. I'm not used to doing this anymore. My voice is gone. James Cook, I think, is going to be better than people think. People are taking him too low. Alexander Madison is going very high in drafts. Alexander Madison's just a guy to me. He's not Dalvin Cook. He's not going to replace Dalvin Cook's production. They're going to do it with multiple players. So he's a guy I can't take where he's going. Christian Watson for the Packers, I think Jordan Love will be fine. I actually like for the value Dobbs a little bit better. Christian Watson's going in top 15 wide receivers. I don't see it.
Yeah,
I saw. I mean, that's not Aaron Rodgers anymore throwing the ball. I think that's going to be a lot of running with Jones and Dillon in Green Bay, and people are taking Watson like he's a high volume guy. I think he's a big play guy. I don't think he's a high volume guy. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I keep on, but you'll see. I kind of like Detroit's offense.
They're looking really good this year
already. Amon-Ra St. Brown, since he's been a starter, has done nothing but been a top 5 wide receiver in the league. He's being criminally underdrafted. He should be going in the first round at this point. We saw it the other night. Dotson for the Commanders is really good.
Yeah,
I think he's going way too low, especially if McLaren's dinged up as well. And I'm going to tell you 2 other guys that are linked at the hip.
and we'll get to see him up close and personal. Deontay Johnson is tremendously underdrafted in fantasy. I mean, this is a 100-catch guy who's going to go for 1,000 yards again this year. On the flip side, I think Pickens, who I think is tremendous talent, and maybe one of the most talented wide receivers we've seen in a long time, but he's very touchdown dependent.
Yeah.
He's not 100. He's a big play guy. And, if you play in PPR or half PPR leagues, one big, 2 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. I mean, we're talking about 12 fantasy points. Give me the guy that's 8 for 100. I got 18 fantasy points. Those are the guys I want. So I just think that, Pickens is a little bit over and Johnson's a little bit under. And I'm going to tell you right now, you look at the tight end position. If you can stomach it, Darren Waller, if he can somehow, some way stay healthy, is going to be a monster in New York.
Okay, I'm buying it.
Okay, he's going to be a monster. Now, I may be out on him because do we get to week 4? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But also look at the kid, another rookie, Luke Musgrave. The reports out of Green Bay is he is awesome, and he's catching everything, and he's very involved in that offense. So he's another guy that you can essentially get for free. And one more from the tight end position.
Okay.
Noah Fant is being totally ignored in fantasy circles.
Wow. At all?
Ignored. I think he has top 12 potential from the tight end position. He's literally going outside the top 20 in a lot of circles. I don't have him that low in my rankings. So right now I have him, just because of the injury a little bit, I have him 18th.
Jeez.
But you can get him, like, if you pass on a Kelsey and you're like, where Andrew's going is a little too rich for me, just wait. There are guys late at tight end that I think can be good this year.
Well, we'll hold it to that. Well, I gotta let you go. We can talk about fantasy all day.
I know I'm long-winded. You know I'm long-winded.
I know, but it's good stuff I got from you. Tell us where we can find your stuff again.
You can go to Fantasy Pros at Fantasy Pros on Twitter or X or whatever we're supposed to call it these days. You can find everything I do. Always retweet everything. Just follow me at Fans Fantasy on X, Twitter, or whatever we're calling it, and Facebook as well. And we'll get you'll find what I'm doing.
Oh yeah, well, you seem like you definitely know your stuff. I know you do. You've been beating me in fantasy football for years. Well, thanks again for joining us, and I'll definitely talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Anytime.
Appreciate it. That was Ken Zalis of Fantasy Pros. He definitely knows this stuff, as you heard, and I'll be using all of his information for sure when it comes to drafting my guys. Hopefully you guys tuned in and can thoroughly beat your competition in the 2023 season. That'll do it for us here at Ravens Talk Podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. The streak is over, but you can start up a new streak when the Ravens take on the Bucs for the final preseason game, and look forward to the regular season starting up against the Houston Texans. Hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the last game of the preseason. I'm your host, Samuel Njoku. I'll see you next week.